next week, the South African President, Cyril Ramaphosa, is going to be traveling to the United States, and he's meeting with Trump next Wednesday. Let me pull this up on my iPad real quick, and I just want to get your thought while y'all are here. The goal is to, quote, discuss bilateral, regional, and global issues of interest. Now, that's going to be quite interesting because it follows Donald Trump allowing the 59 white Afrikaners into the country. Not only that, they said Ramaphosa's office said the next week's visit, quote, provides a platform to reset the strategic relations between the two countries. In addition to that, keep in mind that, little clueless Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, followed Trump's lead by refusing to allow the United States to participate in the planning of the G20 summit that's going to be taking place in South Africa. And they said they were not participating in any way. We'll see what happens. You know, one thing, I've already sent out a couple of emails, and I would love to sit down with the South African president while he is here to do an interview with him. And so y'all know anybody, let me know. I'm already hit some folks trying to get hooked up to make that ready. But the thing here is this is going to be very interesting because you have a liar, Reese. You have a liar who has lied, who has said that the laws are racist. They booted the South African ambassador out of the country. They have demeaned South Africa. They cut off financial aid as well. This has all of the fingerprints of those three white apartheid men, Elon Musk, David Sachs, and Peter Thiel, all billionaires, trying to penalize the black-led government in South Africa.
And we could have had Kamala Harris. But here we are. Just like everything else with Donald Trump, the stated reason behind why he's doing things is bullshit. It's a lie. There's no genocide. Tell me how many white people have been killed in South Africa. There's a genocide. Tell me the manner in which they've been killed. Were they fucking with people and somebody split their wig, or were they just victims? I don't know. But I'm just saying that all of these things are lies. He manufactures, fabricates problems, and then when he comes off and is just a smidge, like 1% reasonable, then it's like, oh, look at him, he made a deal. Oh, look at him, he showed them. So I'm tired of the chaos. I'm tired of the lies. You're breaking something that wasn't broken. You're undoing something that didn't need to be undone. And now, unfortunately, the South African president has to come up here and talk to this dumbass, which, by the way, I did see him give an interview where he talked about how he had a conversation with Trump and he thought that Donald Trump kind of understood what he was saying. But he turned around and did the opposite. So there's no reasoning with Donald Trump. He's going to have to do the same things that the people in Abu Dhabi and Saudi Arabia are doing. Line Trump's pockets. If he can find a way to say, Trump, you can get some beachfront property in South Africa, maybe he'll do a deal. But unless that happens, we're just going to be in for more idiotic and unhinged foreign policy when it comes to the continent of Africa and especially South Africa.
This is the headline here, Robert, in Euronews. South Africa's President Ramaphosa says Afrikaners resettling in U.S. are cowards. And I really hope, Robert, when he comes next week, he doesn't bow down to Trump and kiss his feet. And I hope he, stays strong.
Yeah, what we saw in the last Trump administration during the quote unquote resetting of foreign policy was he created a window. And that window was filled by China and Russia and India and other nations. And what we're seeing right now is that by having this auction essentially on the international stage, where President Trump is going to countries, just as Reese said, and saying we're auctioning off the American government. You pay me, you can get whatever you want out of it. Well, many countries are now realizing that America is no longer that stable partner. You can no longer depend on America to have your back in case of a war. You cannot depend on trade deals. You can't depend on aid coming into your country. You can no longer depend on America even having a democracy to stand up for, stand up to. The quote unquote rules-based order I want folks to kind of take a step back and understand what exactly that is. After World War II, you had all the major nations of the world, the leading powers, get together in Connecticut at a resort called Bretton Woods, and they put in place the Bretton Woods system of international government. All the major world governments or nations have been destroyed by World War II, except for America. We only lost 400,000 people during the war. Russia lost something like 20 million people. We were the only superpower left, so they invested us with the full power of all European empires. We changed the international reserve currency from the British pound to the US dollar. We changed the international monetary system from being centered in Europe to being centered in the United States of America. And that created this great American Renaissance that we've had since the end of the World War II. You move forward to the 1980s when Ronald Reagan meets with Thatcher and the major world leaders to amend this to create the system of globalization of the Plaza Hotel in New York City, which gave us the Plaza Protocols, which we've been under since then. About 2 months ago, we had a similar meeting take place in Mar-a-Lago to draft what are called the Mar-a-Lago Protocols or the Mar-a-Lago Accords, which is the new Trump vision of how the world will operate going forward, the new Trump economic system that we see through tariffs, that we see through deregulation, that we see through international actors coming together and transnational economic forms to change the way that our dollar works and change the way the global economy works. These nations such as South Africa and other developing nations see that happening and understand that the only way that they will have an opportunity to compete is to partner up against the United States of America. We are losing influence on the global stage. This is why we're seeing an expansion of the BRICS nations. This is why we're seeing the Wagner Group taking over areas of defense in places like the Sahel, where they are able to kick out the U.S. from a $100 million drone base because they have Wagner to protect them now. They can kick the French out of the CFA Franc nations because now they can have their own military systems because their defense is handled by Russia, because their economic development is handled by China, because their medicine is handled by India, and America is ceding that territory. And because what we are seeing in America now is pay no attention to the actors. Don't pay attention to the actors. The guy from Real World is running the Department of Transportation. The lady from wrestling is running education. The drunk guy from Fox News Weekends is in charge of defense. You can go down the administration. Do you really think they gave these people any power or authority? No. Those are the actors that are meant to give a pretty face to the people who are really running this country right now. You really think the lady with the lip injections and the fake lips is running the Department of Homeland Security? Do you think they even let her come to the meetings? What you're seeing is a very scripted television program where they got people who look the part, who are able to stand there while the real people from the Heritage Foundation, the real people who are funded by the millionaires and billionaires are actually running the mechanics of the government, and we just let Elon stick a hard drive into America and download our whole files. So when we're looking at what's going on in South Africa, we need to make sure that we as the black diaspora who are here, who have the economic power and ability to do so, are supporting those nations so that they can stand up against what is clearly a change in the world order that will not be to their benefit, and we have to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Remember in Black Panther, when the question was, well, where were the Africans at to come save us during the slavery? The question now has to be, where are we at to save the continent for what we see coming?
That's right.
Greg, take us home.
Right. No, I mean, Robbie, you laid it out, brother. I mean, John Henry Clark used to say, you know, in some stories, there aren't any good guys. If we zoom all the way out and think about this from the level of our species, what they would call Homo sapiens sapiens, human beings, we know that, you know, for the ancient Egyptians, there was good and evil didn't exist as absolutes. But that's true of all Afrikaner knowledge systems I'm aware of, the Yoruba, the Akan. What you had is tests of your character. Are you going to trend toward the bad or the good? Well, humans are capable of both, and most of us exist on that continuum. With that in mind, it will be the species. It has always been the species that determines how long we will survive and what will come next. When we talk about history, we're talking about narratives, which means we're talking about stories, which means we're talking about select moments that we tell ourselves about in the form of stories that help us try to talk about either the best or the worst impulses we had. When we talk about learning, and thank you, Robert, for saying that, Africana studies is very important in this regard. The more we know, the more we learn, the more we can develop a sense of what human beings are capable of, good or bad, and it will help inform our choices. When Cyril Ramaphosa comes here, he's going to sit with Donald Trump because they're both heads of state. He is the president of a country that is called the Rainbow Nation. It emerged in the mid-17th century out of the invasion of the Dutch and then ultimately the British, two groups that are fused together in our minds generally here in the United States as white, but there are distinctions to be made primarily because the Dutch, the Boers, the farmers, are much closer in sentiment to the Pilgrims and the people who pushed out west in the United States, in the sense that for them, the continental Africans, the Xhosa and the Zulu and the Swana and the Sotho and everybody in South Africa, their equivalents are the Indians here in the United States. They look at them with contempt. When Nelson Mandela took over, and we just passed the anniversary of his swearing in 1991 as president of South Africa, instead of exacting the type of appropriation that perhaps happened in Zimbabwe to a degree with Robert Mugabe, they said, we're going to let y'all keep y'all businesses. We're going to let you keep the land. Those Afrikaners are not refugees. In the mind of the warped mind of a punk like Stephen Miller, they are. But ultimately, what they are is white people who got to keep their whiteness in South Africa. They'll find out that that whiteness will give them some comfort here in the United States, but as they have to get jobs at McDonald's and Chick-fil-A and work like the rest of the people in the country, they're going to realize that they probably should have stayed their asses in South Africa, where they were the most privileged minority on the continent. But ultimately, what we are seeing is that, as you said, Robert, when Elon Musk and Altman and those guys operate at the global level, they don't care about any of us. When they are in China, as Musk is, and they don't care about any of us, and they come back to the United States, and the drunk Hexeth and them are getting ready to allow Musk to walk into the national security briefing, and Trump is like, wait, who told Elon he could come? Yeah, you got some national security concerns, don't you? Because Musk doesn't have an affiliation with a country or a loyalty to a country. He's got a loyalty to himself in his pocketbook. What we're seeing is Ramaphosa and any other African head of state and any other African government just trying to carve out a little room to operate, a little breathing room, whether it be the brother Traore in Burkina Faso, even as they send an errand boy from the United States in the form of the head of Afrikaner to go over there and try to undermine him and take him out. I'm sorry, General, you shouldn't allow yourself to be used that way, but we know you will because you're a good army man and you're a good employee of the United States. What we are really must ultimately come down to is this. We're all human in the world. Governments and set up in the nation state formation are something that are a recent emergence in global history. They're not good or bad. They're just configurations of humans. And whether you have fidelity to a country or whether you have a human global solidarity position in terms of your politics, one thing will remain constant. Human beings over the arc of our existence as a species have generally trended toward the good end, not the bad end. So as white people in the United States of America have to decide whether they're going to choose their whiteness or their common humanity with us and everyone else. As the United States weakens as a global force, which is why there is a U.S. Pope, by the way, because if the United States still held the way it held even 50 years ago or 30 years ago, there wouldn't be a U.S. Pope, but it's safe now. Even as that same Catholic Church that Leo, the best U.S. Pope they could get, with a strand of blood from damn near everybody on the planet, which should tell you something about the weakness of the United States globally and domestically, how whiteness can't win. Even as we understand that Catholicism was the glue that held together the project of settler colonialism, because it was the cultural force that animated the designs of the Spanish and the Dutch, and not the Dutch, the Spanish and the Portuguese, the first two out. We understand we're at the end of a moment in world history. We're at the end of a moment, and the stories aren't going to save them. The lies, whether it be about founding fathers in the United States or the strength of global Eurocentric worldviews, none of that is going to save them in the face of the fact that people in the world are sick and tired of being oppressed. And as you say, Robert, the next great movement is afoot. Now, we will have to decide whether we're going to participate in that movement or allow ourselves to be victims of this dying colonialism, as Frantz Fanon might call it.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. The window to invest in Fanbase is closing. We've raised over $10.6 million of our $17 million goal. That means there's room for less than 6,370 people to invest in Fanbase for the average amount. The minimum to invest in Fanbase right now is $399. That makes you an owner in Fanbase today. Go to startengine.com/fanbase to invest. Why? Because current social apps have taken advantage of users for far too long, with content suppression, shadow banning, harmful racist content, and no real tools for monetization and equity. Fanbase has over 1.4 million users and counting, allowing anyone to reach all their following and monetize their content from day one. Social media is the new TV, and whoever owns the apps that distribute that content have the opportunity to own potential billion-dollar companies. While big platforms with uncertain futures are failing to serve their users, Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now, invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the next generation of social media.